All right, guys, welcome back to Sprague River Homestead. Hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed that tonight we don't have any connection problems. Everything's been going okay, but we're kind of dealing with some snow and a little bit of rain, so I never know if things are going to stay hooked up like they should or not. So we shall see. So I guess I'll start a little bit with just an update of what's been going on around here. I know some of you have probably seen my little updates of quail hatching. It went okay. The incubator seems to work fine, and fertility, I was not expecting great things this time of year. So we got 21 eggs went in. I had 10 live, had one that pipped and didn't make it out. And everything was going okay. We lost one of the 10 like right away. So I had 9 and we were doing fine. And then all of a sudden yesterday we started losing them. So I'm not real sure what is going on with that, but I'm down to, I think I'm down to 5 out of the original 9. So I've raised game birds before, and I hatched my jumbo quail back in the fall. So I'm not real sure what the deal is. We're on the same feed, we're on the same water. I did take these guys outside and it was a little bit cold even for the brood pad, so they came back in. Um, but they didn't die or like right away. So I'm not real sure. So if anybody has a suggestion on why my quail might suddenly be falling over dying, I have no idea. But I'm going to start another hatch. I've had that happen in chickens and turkeys before, so you never can tell. But it seems a little odd that I went 3, 4 days and all of a sudden they're starting to die. So I see Russell's on. Hello, Russell. Yeah, so it's kind of a weird deal. Beyond that, I am working on a deal to bring in a whole bunch of new American rabbit stock to Oregon. I've mentioned this before that my herd is getting a little bit old, and I'm about the only one here that's really breeding them. I've started a lot of people up, but nobody that's got new stock. So I am working on bringing in probably 4 new does and at least a new buck for me, and then another doe and another buck for my cousin, who I am just getting started in this. So, and it looks like we got a whole bunch of people on. Hello to Robin, Generational Homestead, Britain Farm Homestead, Marzi Dotes, Carol, and the Allenshire. So, hello to everybody. So, we'll hope that this one goes a whole lot better than the last one since we had a lot of connection problems last time. But on top of that, for the people that are in Southern Oregon or not too far away, my good friend who's about 30 minutes from me is seriously looking at bringing in some silver fox breeding stock to Southern Oregon. We do have a breeder that's kind of out by Grants Pass, but doesn't do a whole lot. So if you're in Southern Oregon and have been thinking about silver fox, maybe later this year or even into early next year, we might have an actual silver fox breeder again. Dana actually has bred them before, so this would be her coming back to the breed, and really excited about that. She's been talking about that a lot. And I just found out that another good friend of mine is actually starting an American chinchilla herd. So lots of really good things happening for rare breed rabbits in Southern Oregon right now. So um, I know some of y'all are really far away from us, but it's good to see a lot of the rare breeds starting to pick up again. I think that's pretty awesome. So beyond that, we are dealing with mud and more mud, which I'm sure a lot of other people are too. And I'm pretty much over it. I know Kanan's over it. The dogs are over it. I'm tired of toweling dogs off. I'm tired of wiping up muddy footprints in the house. And I'm still waiting for the winter snow to get here. So it's a little frustrating. Generational homestead need to find breeders in Colorado. I don't know that there's much of anything in Colorado right now, especially with the rare breeds. I don't know of anybody doing silver fox over there anymore or Americans. Um, Kick me an email if you want, and I will try and reach out to the people I know and see if I can find you anybody in Colorado. srhomestead at yahoo.com, and I'll see what I can do. I'm on the search for some Americans up near Montana right now, too, for somebody. So let's see, Robin, ice, and more ice. Yeah. Uh, we're freezing a lot at night, but it's becoming mud during the day. RW, hello everybody from Trinidad. Well, hello and happy New Year to you too. Britain Farm, we have mud everywhere also. It's kind of odd for us. We usually, this time of year, we're usually frozen. And generally, we're frozen up in February. And then, like late February into March, we start really getting the mud. And like, we haven't really frozen. We hit zero like last week and had 2 inches of snow. And then it's been, I think it hit 40 today. I mean, it's way too warm. And then in another week or two, it's like predicted for 45 every day. So, Russell, glad to see mud grass is growing. Yeah, mud, and more mud. I'd be happy if we had some grass. I'd be happy if we had anything other than mud. I'd take snow at this point. I'm just over the whole mud thing. So that's kind of the high points of what we've had going on around here. I was trying to think if we've got anything else. So all the goats are inbreeding. I'm still trying to wrap up the malocclusion video. I thought I was going to have it out last week. Had a bunch of connection problems, and so maybe Wednesday this week. I've made all the graphics for it. It's just filming the rest of it, and that's really hard this time of year. But we'll see if we can get that done. Ray, have you heard anything about upcoming ARBA shows for 2021? Sporadically. So my understanding is almost everything in California has been canceled until further notice. Because if I remember right, you're in California. Um, yeah, as far as I know, California is pretty much shut down. The show in Reno, West Coast Classic, which is, I was just looking at the calendar, April, it's the weekend after Easter, 9th through 11th, maybe. Right now, it's still scheduled. We've still got Oregon State Convention is still scheduled for May. It's like Memorial Weekend, I believe. We've got a show in Upper Northeast Oregon that's still scheduled, and that is about it. That's really about all I've seen. We're not really sure what's going to go and happen with the whole show thing. I have our Harlequin National is in Indiana this year, and yeah, we're looking at backup contingency plans of what happens if our national gets canceled again because I don't know. It's very hit and miss. Um, Usually, when you go onto the ARBA website and look at sanctioned shows, there are pages upon pages, and right now there's almost nothing. I think everybody's really kind of afraid to reschedule. I saw a show the other day from Washington that got canceled last year, and they were planning for 2021, and they put out a notice already that said, "We will see you in 2022, hopefully." I mean, it's starting to look anything scheduled for California. Let's see. The Allenshire, we were frozen until yesterday, then the mud started. That's pretty much what we did here. I mean, we were warm and it was starting, but it really turned to mud today. Collier Sanford on Facebook and Colorado Springs show having Americans from time to time. That's not a breeder I'm familiar with, so you might want to look into that. Russell, is the Hermiston show on as of, let's see, when did I see Mary post? Mary Whitney is one of the gals who runs that show. And as of like last week, yes, guardedly, yes, they're hoping so. They haven't canceled yet, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed. I don't know if I can make that show this year, but I'm really hoping I can. That's where I wrapped up my reserving show last year. And hopefully we're going to get to have that show. Dusty Data, hello from Florida. Hello. I bet you're not nearly as muddy as the rest of us right now. RW, sorry to hear about the weather over there. Our problem here is feeds, grains. There's no raw material here to produce. The import market is under pressure. You know, I'm not surprised by that at all. We went to the grocery store the other day and the shelves are starting to empty again. And we were there on a Saturday, like at noon. So I'm hearing rumblings through some of my groups and pages that I look at that shipping is backing up again, and so I don't know what's going on. I'm getting a ton of people that are looking for rabbits and wanting rabbits shipped overseas, and we can't get them out of the United States anyway right now. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Being in Trinidad and having so much stuff shipped in, you probably are having a lot of trouble. So hang in there. I wish I had. So I hope it gets better for you. That's kind of a bummer deal for sure. We keep having, I don't know, it's weird to me when you go to the feed store and they've not had chicken. I'm sure we will chat again another time. So so questions, anybody got anything for me? I've had a lot of stuff here lately that is kind of rehashes the stuff we've gone over a whole lot. Mostly asking about trouble breeding. Um, when's the right time to be breeding does, all that kind of stuff. So I hate to cover all of this again and again because I know a lot of you have already asked these questions, seen the videos, and that kind of thing. I've been getting a lot of questions about LGDs right now. It seems to be a season where a lot of people are starting to pick up dogs. And if you are thinking about one and have never had an LGD, caution. Not everybody needs one. They're pretty stubborn. And really, it's going to take 2 to 3 years of good training before you really have a good dog that will do the things that everybody thinks that LGDs will do instinctively. So, um, but if you have questions about LGDs, you can always email me or comment on one of our LGD videos, and I can answer some questions there. Past that, I'm getting ready to do some breeding on the rabbits. Lots and lots and lots of bunnies. Hopefully in the next month. So the satins, I've been on the fence about breeding two of the satins that I just got from a girlfriend because I know her barn protocol and I feel pretty confident in her stock. But as I have told everybody, quarantine is always, prudent. So they are going to sit in quarantine for 30 days, which is kind of a bummer. But the other two, the first two satins that I got are getting ready to come out of that. So I'm going to go ahead and breed them. So they'll finish quarantine bred hopefully the last 2 weeks, and then we'll move them over into the barn for kindling and to kind of get back into the herd. So let's see, Marzi, how do you prioritize traits in your American program? It seems like so many traits to juggle. Well, that's a good question in any breed, not just the Americans. So, what I have always done with my stock is I look at my standard. And if you're going to do heritage breeds, you really need your ARBA standard of perfection. But I look at my standard and I make a list. I honestly go through my rabbits and I make a list of where do I feel like we match really strongly to the standard and where are we really struggling. And then I kind of focus on where we're weak and try and find animals that come in and fix where we're weakest. The things that I absolutely shoot for first in every breed is to hit the must have standard pieces, right? So in your Americans, that's weight. And in your American blues in particular, that's no white marks. So I don't have breeders that have white marks. The only doe that I have that's got a line of white is a scar, and she was born here. I know when she did it, she got caught on the edge of a feeder. And Americans, well, pretty much any colored breed, a lot of times, if you see like a line of white, a lot of times it's scarred. They'll actually scar and get white fur. Blacks, blues, and reds in particular, from what I've seen, are really prone to that. So I start with the absolute mandatory must-haves. So with Americans, I've got to see that mandolin shape. I want to see all my size points. So the bucks need to be 9 to 11. My does need to be 10 to 12. And I'm looking for that good deep blue color in my American blues all the way down to the skin. Sometimes you'll see if they've got some other stuff crossed in where they'll have a really good blue band on the outside of the fur, but they'll fade to almost snow white in at the skin. You don't want that. So I'm looking for good color. In my American whites, because you don't get so caught up in the color, then I start getting a little pickier. Like I'm looking for a good head and I'm looking for a good ear and, basically good structure. But, it's an ongoing process, right? So no line is perfect. I mean, I'm looking at getting a buck from a gal who's who's won our national and our convention multiple times, and even she has flaws. I mean, either it's not the roundness you want to see or the depth that you want to see or whatever. So it's just about picking the things that you want to see fix the biggest. My kind of thing is I look through the standard and see what's worth the most points, and I work from there because I'm a show breeder first and foremost. I mean, meat is absolutely our thing, but you can eat all the ugly ones. So yeah, first the mandatory points, and then secondary. Start looking at what's the most points, and kind of go from there. That's how I've always done it. Or if you've got like huge flaws, obviously work on the huge flaws first. But when it starts tightening up and you start getting where you feel more confident with your standard, then you start going by points. I hope that makes sense. Carol, well, thanks for your help. Da, da. In a previous live, I found a registered New Zealand breeder about 100 miles away, had a doe on hold, paying up for quality instead of much. That's a good way to go. I keep seeing a lot of stuff that's listed as New Zealand's or Americans. Suddenly, we've got this thing on the West Coast of they're all Americans and they're all garbage. There's a girl 4 hours from me selling stuff that is clearly not an American, but it's blue. So she's selling it for way too much money. And on one of my rare breed groups the other day, somebody was selling chestnut and broken blue and broken black Americans. So, yeah, it's kind of a you can't go wrong with finding an actual breeder. I mean, there are times you'll find somebody that claims to be a breeder and it's junk, but um, chances are if you've got a breeder, good pedigrees, you're going to be miles ahead. So, Ray, how long does it take to cure nest box eye? Out of 5 does kindling, I have one nasty doe that 3 of her kids got nest box eye. Um, it kind of depends on how you're treating them. Usually it goes away within a week or so. If it's dirty nest box, take everything out of the nest box, clean the box, put fresh bedding in. Um, if these kits are intended for food down the road, don't treat them with anything. You just want warm water compresses on the eye once or twice a day. You want to keep it clean. Usually it'll heal up on its own. If they're intended for breeding down the road or possibly breeding, you can even get some terramycin eye ointment. Still warm water compress on the eye or on the eyelid. Keep it clean, and then with the terramycin, you put it on your finger and then smear it in. But you can do that, and then usually a week to 2 weeks it'll go away. I have never had to use terramycin on them. Usually it's just a matter of cleaning up nest boxes and keeping the eye clean, and it'll kind of do it on its own. You can also use Vederson. Trying to think, it's not the eye gel, it's the eye wash that I've used a couple of times to kind of wash the gunk out. But yeah, it ought to clear up as long as you're keeping it clean. It'll clear up. Sometimes you'll get a doe that just decides about a week into having babies that yeah, that's now a litter box, which is not cool, but it happens. A lot of times early does like first or second litter will do that kind of thing. Carol, the woman I'm buying from breeds for meat quality, and this is one she was going to keep as a potential. You should be looking at a nice rabbit. Then the nice thing about people who breed New Zealand's for meat, a lot of times, not always, because some people don't know what they're looking at, but a lot of times they're focused on that big, thick, wide loin saddle area, which is where all the meat is anyway. So you'll get it. PT, hello. Hello. Um, Carol, what about a little calendula infusion or dilute lavender essential oil? You probably could. I will admit that I am not a huge essential oil user. I just have not had the time or energy to put into learning it. But you probably could if that's, um, anything that's going to be safe for people is going to be safe for animals generally. Calendula and lavender are both something they can eat, so I would think that it's fine. Yeah, I have never used it. That's all I can tell you is I've never used it, but it's probably safe enough. Marzi, yeah, that makes sense. I've read some people cull out of the nest box to give prime ones the most milk. Do you do that to an extent or let them wean to the freezer? Um, so being that I do Harlequins, a lot of breeders cull on the nest box. We're marking space by day 3, 4. You can usually tell who's a show animal and who's not. Um, I don't do it. I'm of the opinion that a life is a life, and yeah, I let them go all the way to their potential, even if their potential is freezer camp. I just I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the idea of culling it out. There are there are papers that have been done by universities that go in and they talk about, not in rabbits because we don't have enough research done on rabbits in a lot of places, but there is theories that run in dogs, cats, and some other creatures that give litters that say by I'm trying to think of how to put this exactly. Under the laws, if you will, of evolution, if a say in this case we're talking about rabbits, if a doe gives 10 babies every single time and we start taking those babies and weaning those litters down to like 7 and 8 and disposing of extra kits, the idea is under the rules of evolution, eventually, several generations down, you will start to see smaller litter size. It's been documented in dogs and cats. Like I said, nobody's ever tried it in rabbits that I know of, but it makes a lot of sense, right? From a biological standpoint, the less eggs that they use to produce a litter now, they have for down the road. So it's kind of an interesting idea. And like I said, I've read articles on it. I don't know how it applies to rabbits, but I don't. I mean, we started out breeding for meat, right? So I am selecting my rabbits for mothering capability. So if they have 10 babies, I want them raising all 10. I don't know if they're capable of that if I'm cutting litters down to 7, 6, 8, whatever it is. In a breed like Americans, there is no way to know what those rabbits are going to end up as until they're about 12 weeks. I know people who do it in New Zealand's too, and I don't understand it. I guess if you're going to pick out any non-standardized colors, that would be one thing, but I don't really understand the thought process of taking, say, a litter of all blue rabbits because you can't see white spotting or DQs or anything at that age, and taking them and chucking them out. Um, it doesn't work for me. I'm not really into that. Um, yeah, I so the short answer to my very long-winded response, which I'm sure you guys are used to, I let everything go. I Because there's a lot of information to be found even in the rabbits that don't make what I'm looking for in show weight, right? I want to see how they grow. I want to see what they weigh. I'm still looking for DQs and body flaws and any of that kind of stuff because that tells me a lot of information about mom and dad. So if I'm pulling out of the nest box, there are pieces of the puzzle that I'm not getting. So anyway, the Pyro Dude, good evening from the 5 mile marker on Sprague River Highway. No kidding. Just up the street, huh? Well, good evening to you too. Doberman Sant Ray, have you considered selling show quality rabbits for profit? I've been having good luck with my lion heads. So I get a lot of people asking me about profit in rabbits. I'm going to say this. We sell our rabbits, like my Harlequins start at $75 a piece for show quality juniors. The Americans this year are starting at 60 and my Triantas start at 75. My honest feeling on it is if you are raising the rabbits to the best of your ability, chances are you are not going to make a profit. When you're raising animals, realistically, you don't make a profit. I don't get into anything that people tell me is, big money or a profit. Because for every $75 rabbit I'm producing, there's an $8 or $9 rabbit that's heading to the coal buyer, right? So it kind of all works itself out. You might make 75 on this one, but you still have to consider that you've fed mom, you've fed dad, you've bought cages, you've bought hay, you've bought feed, you've bought water bottles. So there's no real thing in there's no real profit in any animal, not just rabbits. So it's kind of one of those things. Jacinda, hi Nikki. Hope your back is starting to heal up some. I'm doing pretty well. Every now and then I get a little twinge, but for the most part, yeah, I'm pretty much back to normal. I'll screw it up. Basically, that's what that means is I'm doing things I probably shouldn't be. Elijah, hello, better late than never. That's okay. Glad you're here. Peace Worldwide Reptiles, can you breed a mother and son purebred NW? I'm assuming you mean New Zealand? And be able to keep back some of the kits for future breeding and then raise their kits for meat. Um, let's see how the long and short answer to this is. If your original doe and buck are completely unrelated, absolutely. If they are already partially related, you can, but you need to kind of know what you're doing. I have a video, if you haven't watched it, talking about line breeding terms and kind of understanding when you can do it. Rabbits can be line bred in together, they say, 10 generations before genetic anomalies appear. That's how long it takes before you have completely annihilated any genetic diversity, provided that you started with two completely unrelated animals. That's kind of hard to do in purebred stuff, especially breeds that haven't been around forever. So it's kind of one of those things where I do it. I will certainly take a son back to a mother. I cull about 98% when I'm doing that. There are very few animals that slip through either to be sold or for my own herd retention, um, because I'm not going to risk anything that looks weird. I'm not going to put up with slow growth rates. I'm not going to put up with bad form, bad type, bad fur, bad color. So yeah, you can absolutely do it, but just cull really hard. You don't want to let anything weird out per se. Ray, would I have done the doe's largest litter would foster some of her kids over to a doe with less kids? You can, and there are a lot of people that do that, that take a huge litter and a small litter and even them out. I don't, but you can. Um, Especially if you're dealing with anything like solid colors, or like I never do it with the Americans. I always have does on standby for a backup in case I get into a situation where mom's not taking care of them, or I have like one or two kits, and then it's a matter of I don't want to lose everybody. But I don't even them out. I want to see that production out of that doe. And so if she's giving me 12 kits, can she raise 12 kits? And I don't know that if I've taken 4 of them and given them to somebody else. I have no doubt that the doe over here that's got 2 or 3 kids can probably handle hers, and if she can't, she's going in a pot anyway. But I wanna know that the doe that's giving me those massive litters can do it. If she can't, I have to wonder if she's really part of the if I really want her as part of my breeding program. Not only to say that she's maybe having more than she can handle. So maybe, 12 is a lot. Most of New Zealand people are right now are saying eight's pretty good. So if you're doing New Zealand and you're getting 12 and she can't really handle that, she's maybe not a doe you want to keep. You don't want a doe that's not able to raise the litter she's producing. So I understand the thought process of evening them out. It's not something I do because, like I said, you just can't get a good feel for what's going on in your barn. The pyro dude lived here all my life. Well, I have not. Kane and I have been here. Well, I've been here 7 years. Kanan's been here 6. And I'm an Oregon girl originally. I grew up near Estacada and then went to Redmond High School. And then I moved away for, gosh, 16 years. I lived in Colorado, Mississippi, Tennessee, and then came back. So we are, I guess I'm technically considered a transplant. It's kind of a weird deal because I'm an Oregonian to begin with. My husband, however, is born and raised, well, born in Iowa, raised pretty much in Colorado. So he is a transplant. I can say that. But just in a good, I'm glad to hear that you're doing better. Me too. Of course, we had such nice weather when my back was hurt, and now that my back is better, the weather's garbage. So it's kind of a bummer deal. Like today, it was 20 and 30-mile-an-hour winds and rain and snow, and I didn't get anything done. So we went to town instead to do some stuff. So no pause, Clark. I just got an LPD and I love it, but now I need to implement new tactics for my small plot. Not sure what an LPD is. Do you mean an LGD like a dog? I'm not sure. Um, let's see, Robin. I'm from Iowa too. Did I miss one? No, I guess not. Um, okay, yes, yeah. What kind of LGD did you get? We have Pyrenees, Pyrenees Akbosh, Anatolian, Pyrenees Anatolian. I think that's pretty much it. We have 5, but we have a wide range of crosses for the most part. PT, I got my rabbits from a breeder with a lot of does and bucks for commercial meat rabbits. Do I necessarily have to worry about genetic issues since my rabbits are all about the same ages? No, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, keep an eye out for anything strange. I always recommend that anyway. So look for malocclusion, look at rye tail. You'll start to know if you're starting to get maybe a little too line bred a lot of times because sizes will start to suffer. For some reason, when you get into really tight line breeding, one, it exposes a lot of weird stuff. So this is where you'll start to get off colors or malocclusion or rye tail and that kind of thing popping up. And it's just because they're ultra recessive genes. And so as you tighten that gene pool up, a lot of that starts to pop up. Um, but the biggest thing that starts to happen is you start to see size issues more than anything. Slower growth rates, smaller sizes. That's almost one of the first things that people complain about when they start getting lines that are just too line bred, and it's almost always size and growth rates. So just keep an eye on that. You should be all right. Sweeney's Creek Farm. Hello from Australia. Hello down there. I've got a girlfriend who's living in New Zealand, and it looks like so much nicer there right now than what we're dealing with here. So, no Paul's Clark, Pyrenees Anatolian, and 8 other huge at 9 months. Hmm. Yeah, they do get big in a hurry. All the LGD breeds do. Like one of ours was, I think he was 85 pounds at 6 months. They get very big in a hurry. So, Elijah, off the rabbit topic, but I saw your quail chick video. Do you raise them for eggs, meat, coloring, combination of the three? We are mostly raising them for eggs and meat. So when I got a set, when I got my eggs to hatch, I did jumbos because I want the bigger ones, and I got the pharaoh colored, which are just pretty much brown, but they're feather sexable, so you can, pretty much know what's going on with them at 6 weeks. A girlfriend of mine, however, that gave me a bunch of adults, she was working on a color project. So my pharaohs are jumbo, but her colored ones, the ones that I hatched, are a standard Coternic. So they're a little bit smaller. Um, I promised myself I wasn't going to get into the color thing. I did join a couple of the color groups on Facebook, and holy cow, there are some wild combinations and some really pretty birds you can make out of it. But that's probably not what we're focusing on by any means. I mean, it's fun to have a whole bunch of different colors pop out of the incubator, but that's not really what I'm shooting for. So yeah, it's not a long-term thing, but primarily just eggs and meat. That's pretty much what we're going with. I'm enjoying them. I think they're funny little things, but having a really hard time with these in the incubator for some reason. We went from 9 that were doing really well and alive, and I've lost like 4 in the last couple days, and I cannot figure it out. Nothing has changed. I incubate birds the same way every time. I know game birds are finicky, but we raise turkeys and I don't have this kind of problem. So, not really sure what's going on with them. Let's see. Back up before I miss something. The PT, should I add an outside doe or a buck? If you want to add something outside, always, always, always add a buck. The thought process is one, bucks are easier to come by, but two, bucks make the biggest impact on a program. So if you're going to do something outside, do a buck. A doe doesn't really do you much good. It can, but it takes an awfully long time. So I would bring in an extra male if you can. Doberman Sant Ray. How long do you wait to rebreed a doe after you've weaned her kits? One time I bred my doe after I weaned her kits out of curiosity, and she had less babies, so now I will give her a good month off of rest. Well, it depends a little bit on when you wean. So we wean at 8 weeks. I give mom 2 weeks off, and then I rebreed her, and I never really have any problems. The only time I might try and shoot her in with the buck the same day is if I've got a doe who's really prone to packing on the weight, and my harlequins are really prone to this. So I do have a couple that I try and skate on in. If not the day that I wean her kits, then a couple days later. I Because fat does don't breed, and sometimes you've just got to get them right back in. Sweeney's Creek Farm, yeah, going through a massive drought. New Zealand is very green. Well, from what I've seen, Australia's had a really hard couple of years. I've seen floods and I've seen fires, and my heart goes out to you. You guys, it's a beautiful country. I'd love to go down there someday. I don't know when I'd ever have time to leave the farm that long, but one day, I don't know. You guys have such an interesting ecosystem as far as the animals that you have there. I think it'd be really kind of neat. So, no pause, Clark. I feel my dog is rounded well, but chewing things up. If they are having time to chew things up, they are not busy enough. LGDs are highly destructive if they do not think they have enough to do. So you might want to kind of evaluate what you've got the dog doing and maybe change things up a little bit. Pete's Worldwide Reptiles. Could you make a video on Coturnix quail care? Yes, that is on the list. We are actually going to do a class here also for anybody who's a little bit more local. In April, we're going to do a Coturnix quail class. Basics from incubation all the way to sexing, breeding, housing, and how to butcher them and all that. Or even going to eat some quail. Look, hopefully, hopefully I have some to butcher by then. So, um, let's see. RW, I have a Harlequin Rex buck. Would you recommend I breed or cross it to one of my Harlequin does to improve on the Harlequin features? Um, you could. You certainly could. So Harlequin and Rex kind of does a whole different thing. You get a lot of brindling when you do Harlequin Rex. Like I've never seen a really clean Harlequin Rex. But if you take a Harlequinized Rex and breed it to like a real true Harlequin, so it's got the standardized normal fur, you will get standardized normal fur, unless that Harlequin carries Rex fur. So yes, you can kind of clean up the markings. I don't know if you can get clean markings on the Rex fur. I have never seen anybody do that. Probably the place to look would be the British. Oh, what are they called? There's a UK Harlequin Rabbit Club. And over in the UK, they can show Harlequins with Rex, Astric, and I think Satinized fur. And you might want to look into that. Some of them over there are breeding it specifically, and I don't know if you can get clear markings on the Rex fur. I've never seen one. Um, but you could try. I mean, if nothing else, if you're trying to really work on getting to a Harlequin, you could breed that Harlequinized Rex to it, save all the normal fur babies, and breed it back in. Every now and then, when you have two animals that are related, you're going to get some of those Harlequinized Rex, but eventually you could make your own Harlequin line, and then it's just a matter of culling really hard for brindling and color. So be a fun project. I'm all about some fun projects. So Shelly Papel, my print is very small. This laptop's not huge. Hello from Eugene, new to rabbits. Really love the silver fox, but can't find any. We lost some of our silver fox breeders in Oregon in the last year. The Shayla Marney is in Grants Pass or Central Point. She's on Facebook. She breeds them. I always recommend my friends at Wicked Winds, which is in Toledo, Washington. That is going to be Lori Ryan. She has beautiful, beautiful silver fox. Every time we go to a show together, I'm like, oh, I really think I want some of those, but I don't have room. And then there's another Lori in Washington who I cannot for the life of me think of what her last name is, and I would know it if I saw her. But Lori could probably direct you. If you reach out to Wicked Winds on Facebook, Lori can probably tell you who else raises them because I really don't know. Since the shows have stopped, we've seen a lot of people getting out of rabbits. So I don't know. The people I knew that were in them aren't in them anymore. So I'm not real sure who you can go to, but definitely check with Wicked Winds out of Washington, if for no other reason than to see if she knows of anybody else in Oregon. She probably does. So this collection, while rabbit giving birth, sometimes bunny died. How to avoid it? I'm from India. Um, while they're giving birth, some die. There's probably nothing you can do there. Um, I'm trying to think of why they would be dying. Sometimes you get does so sometimes you'll get babies that don't develop all the way, or that die in utero. And rabbits are kind of interesting in that they give birth to all the dead ones first. So sometimes people freak out when they see babies on the wire and they're dead, and then mom will get into the box and give birth to the rest of them. That's actually normal. So she's clearing out the dead babies first so that she doesn't contaminate her nest with the dead ones. So that's perfectly normal. And it does happen from time to time. A lot of times you'll never even see them unless you're in there for the birth. A lot of does will clean that up before you ever see it. So it's not unusual for a doe to drop one or two dead babies and eat them before she gives birth to the rest of them. Uh, so that's pretty normal. If you're losing whole litters, though, you have to start asking yourself, what's wrong? Is mom not producing enough milk? Is she not covering them? Are they getting cold? Is she suffering from a nutritional deficiency? But if it's just one or two, it's pretty normal. I wouldn't panic too much. No pause, Clark. Oh, do you? Oh, you do raise quail. I do raise quail. That's a big thing that we're going to be doing in 2021. So I have all I have is Caternix. So I have the jumbos and the standards. So they're fun. I just got started in them a few months ago, so I'm still kind of learning my way through it. Devin, hi, great chat. My question: do you know of a good weight progression chart for growing out kits? I don't, but I have had a lot of people asking me about this. So it naturally it varies from breed to breed. So I'm thinking now that I've got some satins and I do the Americans, and people have been asking me on the weights on Harlequins. I think I'm going to start doing one. So I'm going to basically it's going to take me the better part of a year because it doesn't do you any good for one litter, right? So I have enough does. I'm going to put together enough test subjects, litter sizes, all that, and I think I'm going to work on that. So it's probably not going to come out till either the end of 21 or sometime in 22. But yeah, we get a lot of people asking about that, and it seems to vary wildly by breeder too. So with my Americans, I can tell you that I usually hit 5 pounds live weight in my kits, usually at 9 to 10 weeks, and that's early compared to a lot of other people. But how they progress from there and what they're doing before 8 weeks or 9 weeks or 10 weeks, I can't tell you. I've never bothered. Um, so it's one of those things where, as far as I know, nobody has one. I've kind of Google searched it a little bit to see if anybody else has done any of it, and I've never seen one. So I'm going to try and put one together at least for the satins and the Americans this year. That kind of gives you a better idea of where you probably ought to be. But no, I don't have one yet. Let's see, Shelly, thank you. Selvas, thank you so much. Elijah, I used to have, I believe they were called Rosetta Caternix. Yes, you can get Rosettas. It's a color pattern. In fact, I want to say it's one of my males is a Rosetta. My girlfriend gave me all kinds of funky stuff. So I've got a male that I think is technically a tuxedo. There was another one that was kind of a white man. He was so neurotic. He went to butcher camp or freezer camp. He never actually made it to the freezer. We ate him before then, but yeah, they're a color that there's a whole bunch of colors like pansies and bulbs and Manchurians and stuff that I was like, I had no idea getting into this that there was all these different colors. To me, they're just a little bird. So, you know. Let's see. Selva's tip for rabbit sales: how to attract buyers and consumers. That is a really good question. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of reputation building and a lot of advertising. So I run waiting lists now on all of my breeds except for the satins because we just started in them. And part of that is that I show nationally, I show locally, and I advertise the bejeebers out of myself. Naturally, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. I'm dabbling in MeWe, but just can't really get excited about it. I have I advertise on Craigslist for anything that's going for a meat breeder. I have magnets on my car. And I will talk to people about rabbits anywhere, anytime, for any reason, and for any length of time, to my husband's ever loving distress. But it takes a long time, and you have to. The thing about marketing rabbits is you have to be prepared to grow really thick skin, and you have to be ready for the anti rabbit people, like the PETA type people. So you have to really be ready for that, especially if you're going to market meat rabbits and rabbit meat. Be prepared for that and be very specific. Like, I don't let people come out to the house hardly ever. And that's not because I have anything to hide, but right now we have disease, and I don't really trust people. I've had a lot of friends who have had people break into their backyards and cut cages, steal rabbits. Um, yeah, so you have to be really careful. And an online presence really helps. So I have a website too, on top of everything else. I know a lot of people say websites are dead, but I'm starting to get a lot more people interested in websites. And because I do purebred stuff, I'm in all of my national breed clubs. And like I said, I just advertise the purebred myself. I'm listed just about everywhere you can possibly list rabbits. If you do a Google search for Americans, you can usually find me. A lot of people find me for Champagne d'Argents, and I haven't had them in 3 years. So it's a process. It's probably going to take you 2 or 3 years to start really getting anybody to know who you are. Descendant would like more info. Uh-oh. More info in the kit weights. Someone here can probably offer to track theirs and send you the info. That's a good idea. Let's see. Oh, and now we're starting. Oh, there it goes. Um, that's a good idea, Jacinda. I hadn't thought about that, but I could probably reach out to some different people that do New Zealand's and Californians and some of that, and see if we can track kits and get a better idea of growth rates, because it does really kind of vary from breed to breed and line to line. But Elijah had the tuxedo too. Those are the one color that I kind of am digging. And I got one in this hatch that looks like it's going to be some kind of funky blue tuxedo. So I'm hoping he doesn't die on me, because I really want to see what he looks like. Let's see. Devin, great. Thanks. Selvas, thank you again. Pete's Worldwide Reptiles, could you use their babies to sell as breeders, not just meat? From line breeding, yes, but be very, very, very upfront with your potential buyers about what you've done. Because I don't know if you're doing pedigreed or if it's just meat breeders. Um, and like I said before, you need to cull really, really hard. So be ready to cull anything that doesn't look like it's going to match a standard or have a weird weight or any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, you could sell them as breeders, but just make sure not everybody is comfortable with animals that are line bred. It's a huge human social stigma, right? We're not big into in it for humans. It's incest, and it's not okay, because the human gene pool is way more condensed than what we have in a lot of the animal kingdom. So yeah, you could do it, uh, but just be upfront about it and make sure that people understand what you've done and and maybe you probably don't want to take, unless you know what you're doing, you don't want to take like siblings and breed them together and that kind of stuff. So just be honest about what you're doing and let your buyers decide. PT, while searching for Timothy grass, I noticed him talk about hemorrhagic rabbit disease being connected to the hay. Thoughts? Um, yes, that is what they say. There was a lot of concern this year about hay coming out of the southeast. The big thing there is that nobody really, we don't have enough research, in my opinion. So the numbers that they were throwing around was anywhere from 30 to 60 to 90 days the disease could live on dried grass stalks. So if you were picking up grass hay from, Arizona, where they were having an infection, you could potentially infect your herd. There were people that were saying, well, if I buy it and stick it in the barn for 6 months and then feed it, will it be a big deal? There really isn't a good answer to that. So what the big thing that a bunch of the vets and other breeders were recommending was that you buy from out of state, because a lot of your feed stores, your big stuff, like TSC and um, Coastal, and some of the bigger box ag stores bring it in from other places, or it's heat treated. Now, when you get into heat treated, you have to ask the question of how hot are they treating it? Because that's the other thing. They're saying disease can live up to very high temperatures. So, um, my opinion on it, personally, I guess if I were going to do it, I would buy a bale and I would wait probably 90 to 120 days. Is there a risk? There could be. But from what I have seen, it looks like 60 days seems to really be the magic number. So I would try it. I know it's kind of it's not a good answer, but we don't have, in my opinion, the research that I have seen is not conclusive anywhere on any of it. So you just got to kind of make the decision of what you want to try and do. I certainly wouldn't feed fresh hay out of a field that I thought maybe infected rabbits had been through. I would wait a few months and just see. But yeah, it's really up in the air. I mean, I really don't have a better answer than that. It's just not anything there's enough studies on. Sorry, my vice, Pepsi. Selva's collection: How to protect rabbits in cold. The biggest thing that rabbits need is just to stay out of a draft and to stay dry. We uh we usually, not this winter obviously, but we usually go below zero. And unless it's really getting below zero, I don't do anything different for the rabbits. They don't mind cold. We kindle through the winter, so I don't worry about a whole lot of cold weather. I just never have. But yeah, the big thing is drafts. Keep them dry, keep them draft free, and if it goes below zero, yeah, sometimes we'll throw an extra. If I've got extra nest boxes, I'll pack them full of straw and throw them in there, or we'll throw a thing of straw on the bottom of a net of a cage. It's messy, and I don't like to do it because then it just becomes a sanitation nightmare. But if it's really cold, you can do that. Generally, though, rabbits are super tough. I'd rather deal with cold than deal with hot. So, not too much trouble with the cold weather. Shelly, I've been offering alfalfa and my rabbits are not interested except my wing kits. They don't like valley grass hay at all. Ideas. If they're not eating it, they don't need it. Most rabbits don't actually need any hay. If you're feeding a complete feed, they're getting everything they need already. And about half of my barn will never touch it. We They dabble at the alfalfa every now and then, if I'm feeding it for whatever reason. But grass hay, all of it, my rabbits are totally uninterested. I'm meeting their nutritional needs, and the feed that I've got has just enough fiber that they don't really need it, so they're not really interested. If they're not picking at it, don't quit feeding it if they're not going to eat it. They don't have to eat it. A lot of times I find that weaned kits, like you're saying, your weaned kits will eat it. Kits will eat anything. A lot of times they'll eat anything that's put in front of them. And when you're weaning rabbits, is the one time, like right now, I'm weaning a whole bunch and we're feeding hay every day. And it's just to make sure that we don't develop bloat, enteritis, any of that kind of stuff, that we keep the gut moving. But other than that, they don't need it. Pete's Worldwide Reptiles: Are quail worth their eggs at $23 per 50-pound bag? I don't know. You'd have to crunch the numbers. I'm not paying that much. I'm paying $18 for a 50-pound bag, and I'm getting, of course, a whole bunch of mine are just starting to lay. And once they start laying, I mean, this is the other thing. The only time they need the high protein quail feed, like the game bird starter, they only need that for the first 8 weeks. We have turned ours down to just layer crumbles, and they are doing fabulous at like $12 a bag. So they really don't need the high protein feed. If you start to see them having a lot of problems, you can mix it. But even then, you shouldn't. $23 a bag is a lot of money. I probably wouldn't be raising them if I had to pay that much. So I would look for a better priced feed, I guess. Ray, one of my does that I bought, I did not get the pedigree on. She's a broken black New Zealand. I bred her to my blue New Zealand buck, and they came out with one of the kids kids being a Californian. Oh, well, yeah, that will happen. Was she supposed to have a pedigree and you just didn't get it? You just kind of have to remember that sometimes, like I've said before on recessive traits, color is one of those things, and sometimes hide things hide back there for a really long time. It could mean that there was a Californian in the bloodline somewhere, and it could be all the way back 10 generations and you don't know. That's a bummer you didn't get a pedigree on it though, because that always makes me, whenever you get something funky, it makes me wonder what kind of color you've got going on. Because color genetics are pretty specific. So when you're dealing with blacks and blues and broken black and broken blues, most breeders want you to keep those together. Your red and broken reds, you kind of keep together. Um, when you get into other things like satins, there's otters and torts and all kinds of other stuff. And you don't want to cross them too much because you bring in a lot of you kind of screw up a lot of things and create a lot of recessives in there. But that's kind of interesting that you got a Californian in there. It happens though. Um, Especially with the New Zealands and the Californians, a lot of people used to cross them in and out, trying to fix type problems here and there, which I'm not a big fan of. Let's see. Pete's Worldwide Reptiles, 20 or so birds. Yeah, I think you'd have to crunch the numbers on it. I really don't have a good answer to that, especially if you're paying that much money for a bag of feed. Uh, sell this collection. How long are you in the rabbit business? What makes you come to rabbit farming? I have been breeding rabbits off and on for, well, I've pretty much been breeding rabbits now for 9 years. I've been showing rabbits for 5.5. I was trying to do the math on this the other day. I have had rabbits off and on since I was in like second grade. Um, I really dislike them. Part of the reason that we got into them 9 years ago was because I wanted to raise meat in the backyard. I didn't want cows because I grew up with cows and can't stand them. I didn't want the commitment of pigs, and we aren't big pork eaters. We'd been doing chickens for a while, and I hate butchering chickens. I don't like plucking. I don't like eviscerating. They stink. So I wanted to do something different. And like I said, I'd had rabbits. My uncle actually raised New Zealand's and Californians for meat when I was a kid. So I kind of knew what that looked like. And so that's what we did. That's kind of how we got into it. And it's kind of snowballed into its own thing. I got into showing because a friend asked me to go, and I swore I'd never do it. And look at me now. I don't know what else to tell you. Look at me now. Just send I offer mine alfalfa cubes, usually one piece twice a week. They don't like it loose, but I think they like gnawing on it. Yeah, I will agree with that. We do them on occasion. I like them because they're hard. Um, I'll do them on occasion. They aren't as messy, and they seem to enjoy chewing on them. I don't know if they like it because it's alfalfa or just that they like chewing on them. Because I can give loose alfalfa or flake alfalfa, and they won't touch it. So Elijah, same thing happens with my friends, Agouti Flemish, two kids for California. Yeah, Flemish have a lot of funky stuff floating around in them. Flemish really at one point suffered from a lot of type problems. So you had a lot of different breeds brought in trying to fix stuff. So that kind of be pretty. I've never seen a Flemish in New Zealand and got one that turned out brown color of a wild rabbit. Yeah, that's called a chestnut. So it's a chestnut agouti. So you get that on occasion. Let's see, Marzi, what would you say is the minimum number of bucks and does for a serious heirloom program? Hmm. Let me think about that a second. So it depends a little bit about what your goal is. So if you are breeding them just for yourself and to help to show and to help preserve the breed. You can make a fair run at it with, say, $2 and 4 does. That's what I started with originally. If you are wanting to raise them to not only show, use as meat, but also to sell to other people to get them going, you're going to need more than that because most people want to buy a trio and they want unrelated, which is really kind of hard to get. Um, in that case, I would double it. I would say you want $4 and probably 8 to 10 does. And that's a tall order in Americans to come by. What we have right now is I am down to $4 and 7 breeding does as of right now. And I am starting to have trouble making pairs. So this is why I'm going to bring a bunch of stock in. Um, but yeah, I would say at worst 2 dozen animals. But yeah, if you're going to do them and actually breed to sell them, you're gonna need quite a few. So it just kind of depends, and finding stock is really, really tough. Selvas, you are great. Thank you. Well, I hope that answered your question. I know it's probably a long-winded answer, but RW, do you know if there's something going wrong with Blue Steel Hutch Deluxe? I'm seeing folks complaining on Facebook. I use that for my Holland Lops. Um, I haven't heard anything in particular. I feel like on Facebook, everybody is complaining about something all the time. Feed is one of those things that I think takes a bad rap a lot of times. I see a lot of people that complain about rabbits being thrifty, like they're not filled out, they don't look as good, and everybody rushes to blame the feed. I see people bounce from feed to feed, like changing 3 and 4 times a year, and I can tell you that if you're changing that much, it's not the feed. It's a lot of times just poor genetics. So what I tell people with feed is if you're not having problems, then you're not having problems. Um, you'll know when you're starting to have a problem because we had vitamin D toxicity here, and we knew it well before there was a recall. What we started to notice is the rabbits were not eating like they were, and I was starting to have rabbits digging at the feed that had never dug because my rabbits aren't real big feed diggers, and part of that is we ration, so we don't fill feeders, so they don't dig at the feed. Um, so we knew it way before they were starting to dig. They were starting to not have the condition that I was used to seeing in my herd. So if you're not having problems, it's not the feed. You're always going to get people complaining about the feed. People complain about the feed that I feed from the same mill, and I'm winning championships on my feed, and they're complaining that they're getting nothing. So it's a lot of times bad genetics or bad feeding practice. So I wouldn't worry. I just wouldn't worry. If you think that there is a possibility that there's anything wrong with your feed, start feeding hay. And if you start seeing them eating more hay than they're eating the feed, that a lot of times that means there's something going on with the feed. But if you're not seeing any problems, I wouldn't panic. Robin, what makes the brown chestnut occur? That is an entire genetics lesson that I probably do not have time for. It's a lot of things. So a goody can be both dominant and recessive in certain different situations. So especially when you get into checkered giants, they're kind of like the harlequins are, as far as there's like layers of genes that are causing the markings that they have. So that's probably a discussion for a very long video in the future because that's kind of a complicated color genetics in rabbits is really kind of a complicated thing anyway. Um, but yeah, sometimes it could be coming out of the New Zealand, especially if the New Zealand was white New Zealand. They're just white. They aren't. They have a whole lot of stuff going on behind them. Because it's telling me it's unstable. Let's see, Landon, where do you get your feeders and Crocs from? It's equipment. That's who I've bought from for years. I've always thought they have the best shipping prices. I like their feeders a lot. You've got a couple of different options. And I get my Crocs there too. Let's see. Let's see. Jacinda. Oh, yes. Finally remembered what I wanted to ask. A lot of people say an ounce of feed per rabbit. I weighed out my feed, and 1 cup is 5.7 ounces. That would mean several cups per rabbit. Yeah, that 1 ounce is by weight, not by volume. So whatever your feed weighs. So 10 ounces, if you've got a 10-pound rabbit and 1 cup is weighing 5.7 ounces, then yeah, that means basically pretty close to 2 cups of feed. And you might and check your labels because some feed now is now saying half an ounce per pound of rabbit. I think that's right. Yeah, half an ounce, 'cause a friend of mine is feeding Purina Show, I think it is, it now says half an ounce of feed per pound of rabbit, so you may check on that and just see what your tag says. Just into they would never eat that much. Yeah, 2 cups of feed for a rabbit's a lot of feed. So, I would just check basically, whatever you're feeding them now, if they're holding condition, that's spot on. If they're not holding condition, go up. If they're, getting too fat, go down and adjust from there. That's probably the easiest thing to do. Not everybody has time to weigh feed. I don't weigh feed, so I couldn't even tell you what mine weighs anymore. I am a lazy feeder, so I go by a cup, like by volume, even though I know that's wrong, and adjust from there. And I do it so often, I know which rabbits feed what. Dave Joy, have I ever raised palominos? I haven't. Palominos are not something I see in Oregon very often. Every great once in a while, one will come through a show. They don't excite me for whatever reason. They come in two different colors, and I am going to have a breed video out about them probably February or March. Because I did take some footage and talk to some breeders about them at the convention in Reno in 2019. They don't excite me. They're a nice looking rabbit, and if you have access to them and you like them, I think that's awesome because they are a heritage breed that's in a lot of trouble. Uh, but yeah, I don't get excited about the pale red. It's part of the I don't know. It's just part of my own thing. Palominas actually come in two different colors. I think lynx is the other color, and it's kind of I think it's an agouti base, but it's kind of a golden agouti. It's kind of pretty. They're just not anything I'm excited about. Jacinda, I feed them basically what they clean up and not leaving too much left between feeding. That's fine. That's pretty much how we do it. And like I said, just go in and check your rabbits. If they feel good, solid, not too fat, not too skinny, run with it. Whatever works for you. Courtney, I read quarter cup of pellets per every 6 pounds of rabbit. Is that accurate? Depends entirely on your feed. It really does depend on your feed. And rabbits will change as they age, just like the rest of us. So young rabbits usually have a higher metabolism than the older rabbits. Active breeding bucks of any age usually burn more calories, but it depends entirely on your feed. Some of them are made for basically 1 ounce per pound. So in a 10-pound rabbit, you're looking at 10 ounces of feed, which is a lot. Some of them tell you half a cup, but then they don't tell you what size rabbit. So it really does depend on the rabbit. I would start there and see if you feed them a quarter of a cup and they're out of feed in like 2 minutes and act like they're starving, they're probably not getting enough. Because a quarter cup is not a lot of feed unless you're feeding like I think my Triantas even get half a cup. So that's not a lot of feed. So I don't know. It would kind of depend on what brand you're using. Just and I basically give half a cup in the morning, half a cup in the evening, and the mamas with babies get extra, and everybody seems to do well. You're a more patient human than I. I feed once a day and only once a day. Well, I tried to weigh Coco the other day. I just have a kitchen scale and it kept going back error. So I know she's over 11 pounds. We did that same thing when we tried to measure or weigh some of our butchered chickens this year. I would just plop them up there and I'm like, error, that one's over 11 pounds. So I hear you there. Ray, I use a soup can that I weigh, then feed my rabbits. Scale marked on the rings on the can. It makes it a whole lot easier. Yeah, that works. Whatever works for you. I use one of the great big feed scoops, and I've been doing it long enough that I just know kind of a magic line in my own head of how high up in the feeders their feed needs to go. And, you know, I can just walk down the line and feed like 5 or 6 or 8 rabbits at a time, depending on what what everybody's eating. Um, but yeah, if a soup can works for you, that's fine. Whatever works. You just want to have some consistency. That'll give you the best idea of how they're doing on their feed ration. So okay. Let's see, Landon, what breeds do I have? So right now I have Triantas, which are little rabbit. I have Harlequins, and I do Americans. I also that lives here. My last little crossbred rabbit passed away recently, so that's all I have right now. I've done New Zealand Flemish cross. I had a Velveteen Lop here for a while, Mini Rex, Mini Lop cross. What else did I have? I had Standard Rex. That's probably the high points. Oh, and Champagne d'Argents. I always forget. I've had those too. Courtney Wilson, I've heard the term mutt when talking about rabbits. Does it mean more than 3 crosses or what? Well, you've got a whole bunch of people that refer to meat rabbits as meat mutts if they don't know what the breeds are. So if a rabbit is made up of 2 known breeds, that is a crossbreed. Anytime you get into 3 or more breeds, yes, you start talking about being mutts. Anytime you have to say, well, it's a quarter this and an eighth that and a 16th this, yeah, it's just referred to as a mutt. It's very similar to what people do with dogs. If you don't know what it is, if you know, so the only exception to that in rabbits is there are things called composite breeds. This is your stuff like your Altex, your Texas A&M, which is also known as the Tamu or Tamooks. They are a composite breed, and so a composite breed is 4 known breeds. So they're a quarter, 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 quarter of something known, and they're specifically bred for a purpose. That was at least the original program for the Tamu and Texas A&M Altex. It was specifically for breeds. It's kind of developed or turned into a whole nother glorified mutt program at this point because now I'm hearing that there's like seven different breeds that were used in the program, and that was not correct. In the beginning, there were 4. So that's usually a composite breed when you know like they're equal parts and it was specifically done. But anything else, yeah, if it's more than 2 breeds, it's typically considered a mutt. So I think that's all we've got, unless anybody has anything else, because I see I'm already at like an hour and 15 minutes. So that's a little bit longer than I'd planned, but I'll give everybody a second. So if you have any other questions, go ahead and type them in for me. So for the West Coast folks, there are a lot of new classes that we're going to be offering this year. I have the rabbit class scheduled in May. We have a Coturnix quail class scheduled for April. And we are still picking a date for goat class. I have a couple things in June that I know they're supposed to happen, but we don't know if they're really going to happen or not. So probably somewhere in mid-June. And then from there, I'm open to suggestions if anybody has other classes. I know a lot of people, we can bring other people in. So that is about all that I have. And I don't see where we have any other comments. Oh, Robin says, hit the thumbs up, everyone. Thanks for that, Robin. If you like listening to me ramble on forever, you can give me a thumbs up. Jacinda, we always seem to keep you longer. That's okay. I'm glad that it worked. Last week, I was really done in about 20 minutes. So, Elijah, what breed of chickens do you raise? I asked on the last stream, but lost the connection. Oh, we do primarily Wyandottes at this point. I do have Dominiques, and I have an old line of Americanas, blue wheaten Americanas, crossed out with some Easter eggers just for something fun. But we mostly do Wyandottes. So I have blue laced reds, blues, blacks, silver laced, and golden laced. And the roosters are horrible, but the hens lay really well in this environment. They don't mind the cold weather. We don't have frostbite problems because of the comb. So we've done other breeds, like we've raised red and black sex links. We've done Javas. We've done Orpingtons. We've done Partridge Rock, Barred Rock, Rhode Island Red. Was trying to think of what else we've had. That's probably the high points of them. But we've done a whole bunch of different breeds, but we've pretty much moved into anything that's going to have a short comb so we don't deal with the frostbite problems here. So, Courtney, I have a 7-month-old Rex and she keeps tucking her butt. What do I do? Oh, when you're breeding her, she's tucking, I'm assuming. Um, yeah, a lot of times that just means she doesn't want to breed. I would turn her over, one, give her a full exam, make sure there's nothing going on with her, but turn her over and look at her vent and see what's going on. If she might be pale, if she's pale pink, she's not ready to breed. If she's red, purple, or a really dark pink, she's ready. And then sometimes you'll have trouble with those not wanting to breed, at least here in the United States. I don't didn't catch where you were. Um, but a lot of times this time of year the light levels are not good. So we don't have the like huge window that chickens do where they don't get enough light and they don't want to breed, but we do have trouble from usually the beginning of December to about the end of January. So she might just not want to be breeding because in her mind spring is not here yet. So Robin, I have Colombian. Why not? I mean, Colombian comes in a couple of different things. That's on my list of I want. I'd like to I'd like to get the buff Wyandottes and I'd like to get the white Wyandottes and I'd like to get the Colombians. There's a whole bunch of like other stuff, but those are on my list. Like I need another chicken breed. RW, I remember you spoke about folks in the UK. Could you share a link for any Harlequin breeders in the UK? I will look that up. I don't have a list of breeders because they're kind of funny about stuff over there, but I will post you a link on our community tab either later today or later this evening or tomorrow that links over to their club and they can probably get you in touch with somebody because I think their borders are open to import export. We're not. We can't ship anything out. Well, they were just having this discussion on one of my arbor groups yesterday that somebody was trying to ship something out and flat out got told no, that we can't do it right now. But they might. The UK might be shipping. The US is shut down in ways that a lot of other countries aren't right now. So I'll post that on the community tab on our YouTube page though. So just look for that. I'll try and get that up tonight, but I never know what the internet's going to do. But I'll put that up there so you can try and get in touch with them and see what they can recommend. Because they've got all kinds of stuff. You've got some really nice Japanese breeders over in Germany, but I don't speak German, so I'm I'm of no use there whatsoever. So, Courtney, I'm looking for a purebred New Zealand doe. Any recommendation for breeders? There are a million of them, and I don't know everybody. Kind of depends on where you're at, too, Courtney. Uh, for anybody outside of Oregon, I would probably talk to the National Breeder Club, which is the New Zealand Rabbit Federation. They have a Facebook page and a website. Yeah, you're in Arkansas. I don't know anybody in Arkansas. I would get in touch with the association. I don't know if they've got a breeder map on their website. They might, but if they don't, they should have a email address for their secretary or a way to get in touch with them. And I would just send them a thing and just say, I'm in Arkansas and I'm looking for rabbits. And they can usually tell you who. If they won't tell you who, they'll usually pass your information on to a breeder because some of the clubs are getting really funny about that. As usual, breeders are getting kind of harassed by PETA, so they may not want to give you contact information, but they may pass your information on to somebody. But that would probably be my way of doing it. Jacinda, why did you get out of ducks? I'm liking the ducks over the chickens. We think the ducks are freaking hilarious, but we are basically high desert, and the water requirements for them here are really, really tough to keep up with in the summer. They do fine in the winter, other than we get really cold and their ponds freeze. But yeah, the big thing is that it's just really hard to keep up with them in the summertime months, and making sure that they have enough water to keep their eyes and nose clear in the winter is a little tough, because you don't want to give ducks too much water because it ends up everywhere. But if you don't give them enough water, then they don't eat right and they can't do any of that. So we're just getting rid of them. Just we butchered some of them already. It's just I don't feel like it's fair to them. The geese don't have the same problems, so I'm just not going to keep waterfowl where there is no water, basically. Uh, Land in Grace Hollow Rabbitry is in Arkansas. She has good New Zealand's. Yep. Yeah. If you know somebody, that's great. I want to say we actually know somebody. Kaden, are the Branscoms in Arkansas? Check with Branscombe Farms. Now that I think about it, we did a collaboration with them this last year. They're in northern Arkansas. They're on Facebook and YouTube. And I'll try and put a link. You can look for them, Branscombe. It's Branscum, I think. Um, but I'll put a link up for their stuff on the community tab when I do that thing for the Harlequins. You can look for them as well. The Branscombs are really nice people. I can't remember what color New Zealand she's doing. I think she does reds and broken reds, I think. But she loves them. They do great, great stuff. And of all the New Zealand colors, I've always heard that the reds and the broken reds are some of the nicest. So Pete's Worldwide Reptiles, what do I pay for rabbit feed? Um, my going rate right now, I think, is $16 for a 50-pound bag. I buy by the pallet, so I pay $1 less a bag. So I pay like 15 bucks a bag. Is 16% protein, 1.5% fat, 17% fiber enough? No. No, you might want to go back and watch that video that we have that talks about rabbit feeding. Uh, Ideally, domestic rabbits need 2 to 3% fat, but they really need to be trying to hit closer to 20% on your fiber. 17 is low. 18 is, in my mind, a bare minimum. Anything over 22% is a waste. But yeah, 17 is too low, really too low. Carolina Homestead with Tommy, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. I don't know if you just joined us, but I'm getting ready to log out. Carolina Homestead with Tommy. Is it cheaper to buy the pellets from a big box store or feed store? Almost always feed store. The thing you have to worry about in a big box store is quality. Like, how often are they going through those feed? Um, that's kind of the big thing. And you get that even out of big box feed stores too. Like Tractor Supply is notorious for not turning their feed over enough. So what you end up with is old feed. You really don't want any feed that's over about 90 days if you can help it, because it starts to lose nutrient quality. So anything it says on the label may not be right anymore. So I would try not to. Ray, there's a very good breeder in Arkansas, Grace Hollow. She has a YouTube channel. PJ has black, blue, broken, very good show lines. Yeah, I'm not familiar with her, but it sounds like that's who you probably want to look for, Courtney. Oh, she has? Grace Hollow. It does sound familiar. I can't keep up with anybody, but it sounds like she's in Arkansas. Might be somebody to look into. Pete's Worldwide Reptiles, whatever. I give them lots of Timothy hay. Okay, so again, watch the other video and then watch the one about feeding hay. So the long and short of it is, giving them hay increases your fiber, but what it does is it's going to drop your protein and your fat. So now you've got a problem where you've already got low fat. So by adding that grass hay in, now you're really low on fat, but now you've broken your protein level down even further. That's not going to fix the problem. You really need to try and find a better feed. Carolina Homestead with Tommy. I'm in South Carolina and have to find somebody selling meat rabbits. This is kind of an odd time of year to try and find meat rabbits. A lot of people take the winter off. I don't, but I'm out in Oregon, so I'm not of much help. If you can't find, I'm not a big fan of Craigslist, but if you can't find a breeder near you, pick a breed that you're interested in and then hit their national breed club and see if anybody's out there. The things you can almost always find are New Zealand's, Californians, and we have a pretty healthy satin population in the United States. So you can probably find all of those three. If you want something more specialized, you're definitely going to have to look at the breed club. Courtney, does Grace Hollow have a Facebook page where I can message her? Yes, look them up on Facebook. Sounds like Landon knows all about it. Okay. All right. Well, I don't see anything else. And I don't see any messages on my phone. So, guys, I think I'm just going to go ahead and end it here since we're now almost at an hour and a half, unless anybody has anything real quick. So, I feel like everybody is liking these a whole lot more than me doing the Mailbag Monday videos. I kind of enjoy the interaction, so we're going to keep doing these on Mondays unless I have something come up. Probably what's going to happen about spring, though, we may go back to the recorded stuff just because I get really super busy. But this time of year, it's snowing, it's raining, it's dark at 5:30, so I can definitely keep doing these. So we'll give them a try for a while, and if you have questions in the meantime, feel free, send me an email, send me a message, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, all the usual things. Um, thank you everybody for coming in. Robin, Carolina Homestead, Landon. I can't see the whole list of who else is in still on, but everybody that's made it, thanks for coming. Uh, Carolina Homestead. Hopefully, I catch it next Monday because I'm new to this. Hey, I'm still new to this too. I think this is like my fourth or fifth one. So we actually had good enough connection to make it all the way through. So, hey, pretty good stuff. RW, thank you for everything. Keep up the good work. Bye, all. Jacinda, Happy New Year. Yep. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody's 2021 is off to a good start. And we will catch y'all next time. Send me messages if you need anything. But that's it for me from Spreger Homestead. See you guys next time.